Hi, my name is Mikey Brown. I co-founder and I was in the band Laughing Cattle for 24 years from 1994 to 2018. I've been asked to go over a little bit about my time in the band and glad to do that. Guess I'll start at the beginning. 94, March of 94, me and Jamie hooked up. I was playing drums at the time. Jamie was the guitar player. That's all we had. Tried to look for bass players, singers, whatever. Never had much luck. That's kind of been the what I call the curse of the band that we have or had, and they still have. Kind of the curse was the rotation of many members. Me and Jamie stayed the same. We were 24 years. It was us two, and then a cast of characters after that. But in 1994, we played in a couple other bands together. I was the drummer in both of those bands, and we did got together and started working on some stuff we had in our head. And I wrote some songs. Jamie put the guitars for them. I had the drums for them, and out of necessity, I said I'll sing them. Sure, I'll just go ahead and sing them. So about 9 months after we got together on that, and we went to 7 songs or so we had done, and we had a buddy of ours come over and record the first album. Or back in them days, cassettes. It was called Prod. Did it on New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, I believe, of '95. Um, and the funniest thing about the Prod album, I mean, besides being my first attempt at really going and writing a full album and doing the whole deal with the promotion and all this stuff, was we had 7 songs. And on a cassette back in the day, if younger kids might not know, they usually had equal amounts of songs on both sides. So we had the 7. We had the brilliant idea of doing one on the fly. And it's probably, in my opinion, the absolute worst song we ever did as a band. It was music on the fly, the drums, the guitar, the bass we added later with the guys that we had, the buddies that we had threw the bass lines on for us. I made up the words on the fly. I sang them kind of on the fly. So if you ever want the funniest song you'll ever hear, the worst Laughing Cattle song you will ever hear, get the Prod CD or cassette or whatever it is, and listen to a little tune called Don't Walk. It is atrocious. But it's one of those things, you do it, and in hindsight, it doesn't seem like such a great idea. But at the time, it filled the, 4 songs each side and got us through. And off of the Prod cassette, we started the band that way. We were always looking for bass players or singers or drummer, whatever we could do to get a live group out. The big thing for me with the Prod album and all that was being in the Sydney paper. For me, that was, monumentally big at the time. I was 24 years old, 23, 24. Had been doing music at that time for 6 or 7 years, kind of screwing around, yelling at people. Basically, as me and our buddy Rod had started out in his basement writing songs, and him on the guitar and me singing, screaming, whatever. But being in the Sydney paper for me was the first legit big thing about being in this band, and it was the first inkling that I really wanted to keep pushing forward. And through that, I mean, I think it helped a little bit, but we got a couple of younger kids. They were 16 or 17 years old that were sort of related through Jamie, his ex-wife, so it'd be his brother-in-law at the time. Had a band, and they were kind of, just kind of not doing much. Well, they did have a guitar or a bass player and a drummer, so we got Jason and Chris from them. So I think it was maybe a year later, maybe after the disc came out, that 96, 97, aims. I know '96 for sure was the start of the live shows. So we had Chris and Jason. So we finally had a legitimate band to go out and play shows, which was our one of our things. It was goal of first was to record some music. We wanted to record it and have an actual tape out and get our name out there, and then finally, the next goal, of course, is to play shows. That's where people get their bread and butters, the shows. So we did get the show lineup. We got Chris Rogers playing drums and Jason Cavender on the bass at the time. And I remember the funniest thing about that lineup was has to be still to this day the first show we ever did. Me and Jamie had went to Dayton to, I think we were scouting out the actual first scheduled show we were going to do. So we had come back from Dayton, and a buddy of ours, his band Valve, was playing at a little dive bar in Sydney called The Jungle. And The Jungle, back when its heyday, it was a rough place, but it was a dive bar. It was a local bar, and so we went in there just to see our buddy's band play. So our buddy Gary, actually who we went to see, he came up to me right before their set and said, "Hey, Mikey, the headliner band kind of bailed on us. So we're wondering if you guys would want to come in and do a set so we can fill the night up." I didn't know what to say. Me and Jamie looked at each other like, what are we going to do here? Because we want to play, of course. It's a big deal. It's a hometown show. There was a lot of people there at the time. Valve was a big band in that era. Of course, we want to be the type of band people recognize as reputation that we'll play in a minute. Because at the time we would have played anywhere, anytime, anywhere for any amount of no money like we always make. But we called Chris and Jason, asked them to come out there, so we're going to play tonight. And they're like, to walk in, you seen one kid that was all excited. Chris was ready to go. He had his sticks. He was storming through that bar. Being allowed to be in a bar was probably cool. But he's storming through that bar, getting ready to get that set going. He's going to pound it out, And then you got the bass player, who looked like a complete deer in the headlights, scared to death. Well, needless to say, we played the show. I don't really remember much about it. It was a rush, an adrenaline rush. I do remember, a few people bailing out because, Valve was the big time band anyway. They were there to see them, and that's cool. We did have a decent little bit left at the end of the night, and we did our set, and it was fun, and I think we did pretty well, from my recollection. That's a long time ago, but I remember the owner of the bar, he come up and said, "Hey, thanks guys for filling in time." Put a $5 bill on the old bar and said, "There you go. It's just something for your troubles, a little bit of trouble." So our first gig was a $5 gig. Hey, we played plenty of gigs for less than that. So it was an exciting day. It was an exciting time at that time. We went on to do a bunch of good shows with Chris and Jason. Little Moe's was a place in Piqua that was there prominently. We did some great shows with them. We also went in and did to a studio in Dayton, FGM Studios, in I think it was Moraine, and we did a 4-track EP, which would be our next release, which would be Something Old, Something New, Something Borrowed, Something Blue. So we had the four song cassette EP. Then we went in and did what I call, still probably from start to finish, my favorite Laughing Cattle musical production, whatever you want to call it, was the Hawaiian Postal Carrier full-length CD. They actually got into CDs by then. So yeah, but we released them as cassettes and gave some CD, had some CDs. But Hawaiian Postal Carrier, from beginning, first song to the 10th song, all the way through, every song was in my opinion, kick ass. It had some of the classics on it that I still listen to. Premature was on there, which is still being played by the guys to this day. Time was on there, which is an excellent song. We played it as early as a couple years ago because I really always liked that song. Guru was a fan favorite. A lot of people liked Guru. Monsters, Monsters is one of my all-time favorite cattle songs. It's just a, the lyrics are a little bit ridiculous. The song was it was real catchy, but the lyrics, were about my fear of mice, and the beauty of that, and the beauty of the band. I mean, I can say it. I'll probably mention it 2 or 3 times. But the beauty for me of being in this band was I was uninhibited. They said, I was never told, hey, don't write that, or don't sing that, or we're not going to do this subject. We're not going to do that subject. We're not going to play punk. We're not going to play rock. We're going to stick to hard rock. No, if we wanted to do a punk song, we do it. And in that case, the lyric wise, I was free to do whatever. So I wrote about my real life, and I still do to this day. But Monsters was one that sticks out because it was so, the song was good, it had a good groove to it, everybody liked it. And then when you would find out what it was, you always got a laugh out of people, because here's me, a 350-pound dude that stomps around the stage like I'm having some kind of attack, and I'm afraid of a 6-ounce mouse or whatever the hell it is. And I've always been that way, and I decided to write a song about it. But to have the flexibility to do that was super cool. I mean, I wrote a song on the Hawaiian Postal Carrier album about piss racing against somebody in a urinal to see how long, who would last, who goes the longest. I wrote it's a 5-minute song. I mean, it was a classic song, Piss Racer. So if you ever get a chance to check that out, I mean, that was one of the ones that we didn't play very much. But, I mean, all the way through, and the original Toowawa Park's on there, which, was like a studio thing. We practiced it once, and we'll just rip it through. It was a first take in the studio. It still sounds amazing today on that recording, and we recorded it at another time. A Big Rock, I believe, has Toowawa Park on it. But that raw recording the first time was super cool. And it was a good time. Those guys were young, and they were really into it. And then it kind of fell off. We had a big show scheduled, and bass player scared to death decided, he was scared to death a lot, but he decided he couldn't do it at the last minute. And it was a big thing for us. And that kind of started the trend of having to go out and find other people to play. So and then Chris ended up, I think he ended up about that time, we tried to get a couple people, couldn't find anybody. Chris, at that point, had either, I don't know if he moved that soon, but anyway, eventually he moved before we could get anybody else to fill it in. So from about, I'd say 98, 99 to 05, maybe 06, I'm thinking, it was me and Jamie doing a lot of stuff. I mean, we couldn't play live because we couldn't find other people that just didn't get it. A lot of them were into heavier stuff than what we were doing, or stuck with a certain genre, or they played covers, which is all fantastic. Bands being with each other, taking care, we want to support it. We always tried to support every band we could. We didn't care if they played country, if they were rap or whatnot. I mean, we don't like that per se. I like the old rap music, but like today's rap, R&B, stuff like that, it's just not my bag. It's not my thing. But I'm into a lot of different kinds of music, so we try to be supportive, and we understand that this people got a certain thing they want to play. For us, it was more, we had a few certain genres that we kind of, in our wheelhouse, we stayed with, but we weren't opposed to doing anything. I mean, other than stuff we were unable to do. We can't play polka music without an accordion player. I mean, it's just that kind of thing. So me and Jamie, we stuck around, kept at it. We wrote some new songs. Wrote some new songs here and there, and we were still kind of, doing projects on the side. We did One Cheek Sneak, which was like a punk project where I wrote these incredibly dumb lyrics, and we just come up with grooves for them, and some of them probably could have been legit songs. I mean, we did a whole album of these, just to keep in the practice mode, keep together. I mean, we were pretty tight friends. We tried to stay up with each other and did all this good stuff, and we weren't getting discouraged, but it was, I mean, it was discouraging, but it wasn't like enough to say we're not okay. The band's done. We kept the moniker. We kept trying to write new songs. We had some, and we could have recorded them with me and him, but we just chose not to do that. So Jamie went into, he had a couple buddies, and they were doing some covers just for fun. Never thought about doing a cover band or whatnot. I don't know. But they were doing some covers, some decent stuff, 80s, 90s stuff. And, Jamie mentioned, he said, we could use somebody to kind of help us out with singing. And I'm like, all right, since I had gotten moved to singing from when Chris, whatever, I had been in the band. I hadn't played drums much, so I was like, yeah, I'll sing. I've been kind of doing both in our writing process, but so yeah, I'll come out and try to sing some covers. I'm not a cover guy, but I said, yeah, sure, I'll try it. They had their band Standard Anatomy, so Walt was playing drums for him, and Matt was playing the bass. And I come out, and we did some Outfield, I think was on there. New Girl Now by Honeymoon Suite. There was a Bush song, I believe. Maybe a Motley Crue song. I can't remember all the ones they had, but they had a handful of songs they would do. I'd come out and scream at them, put my spin of lyrics on them or whatever. And, and like Your Love was one of them they did, and it was a staple in Cattle. We actually did that cover a bunch of times. For every show we needed to play covers to fill the time, especially like CNC or JJ parties, whatever. We ended up doing that song for years. So, it was cool. And it eventually got around to, hey, I wrote these couple songs, and Jamie had these guitar riffs for them. It's like, hey, why don't you guys try to maybe put some words, get some music to it, help us out with these new songs. And they were up for it, and they were like, okay. I don't know if they really ever wanted to be in Laughing Cattle, but there was an opportunity that came up and said, a buddy of theirs had a son that was coming back from basic training, I believe. I'm pretty sure it was basic training for the Army, and they wanted to have a party for him. And Jamie was asked, you guys play the show? Would you come out and, get another band to come with you or whatnot, and just have some music out there? We're having a party. It's out in the middle of BFE. Nobody will mess with us. We said, sure, and it got to the point where finally those guys, said, yeah, we'll do this with you. We'll be in the band. And we played that at AJ's party. It was a good show. It was fun. We had a lot of people thought it was good, and I think we had 8 or 10 songs at the time, and we had even put a new one that we had done, the song done. We played at that party. I remember that. So once we got those guys in, we went ahead and I had some other songs. I had a few other songs written, so we said, well, we just record an EP. Well, we didn't really feel like going to the studio, and money was tight back then. We both had me and Jamie both had smaller kids at the time. Not really smaller kids, I would say, but 12 years old, whatever. Normal things, and money, and decided, so we'll just do it at home. So we did a home recorded EP. It was called Rawhide Mafia, and it had Done on it. It had some really good songs. Waste a Bullet was on there. Waste a Bullet's one I really liked. I still like it. I hadn't even heard it, and then the other day when Jamie brought this idea for the video up to me, I had to go back and check out some of the old stuff, and Waste a Bullet's a good song, man. It's a good song. Walk On By is on there, and it's a good song too. And the original SPD, I think it's the only recorded SPD, but SPD became a big thing for us. A lot of people know us by the song SPD or the Sydney Trio, but SPD was the original with the Officer Fucknuts intro. And it's just it's a classic for me. Not everybody's going to call it a classic, but it was one of them songs. It was a goof off song for me lyrically, because it was about me getting arrested for DUI and my interactions with the Sydney Police Department. and we had a good time with it. I mean, everybody that heard it kind of chuckles, they laugh. Even a small side story: my cousin, her husband, works as a dispatcher for a Sydney Police Department. He had heard about this, or she had heard about it, and told him and got him a copy of the song, and he went in and played it for his friends at the SPD. That made me nervous at first until he told me they absolutely cracked up and they loved it. And it's tongue in cheek. I mean, they were doing their job. You know what I mean? And it was like, but lyrically, it was a fun thing. And the Andy and Barney little piece I got in there, a lot of them recognize that, you know, Andy and Barney. And yeah, it was a classic song, and you know, we did that in the living room of the house. You know, it's just like we didn't care. It didn't have to be professionally sounding polished, blah blah blah. It sounded like what it would be if we played it live, which is what we were looking to do on just about every disc, to tell you the truth. But we rolled along with that, and those guys played some good shows with us. We played some bigger, like Lima. You know, I think we did a couple shows in Troy with them. The big show, we did one big show at the Phoenix, I remember. And I don't know how much I'm supposed to get into, but there was one time, and it was a show at the Phoenix with Walt and Matt and them. I mean, there was a couple good shows. We did one with Race 101 and Sometimes 5, which is a big show. It scared the living shit out of me. I mean, that's the biggest crowd I'd ever seen, and I knew they were all there for those two. But, you know, nobody disrespected us, and we had a hell of a show. It was a good time, and people hung around, and so I was happy with that show. But the other show we did at the Phoenix with them guys was we were opening for a cover band, Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, I think it was. It was a Black Sabbath cover band. And they had some commercials on the radio. This cracks me up. But they had some commercials on the radio about, you know, this band was in there. They actually had the band in there live. Like, it was a big deal. It was going to be a big deal for the Phoenix, you know. It was a big-time cover band. Well, this guy was on there, and we were listening to it. We were out at Jamie's house doing our prep for the show, you know. I think we even practiced that morning just to tighten it up a little bit. And we're sitting there listening to this guy on WMVR, and he's talking about, you know, the show tonight with their band. And he said, yeah, I think the guy's quote was something like, yeah, there's an opening band tonight. We don't know who they are, but they're really just sacrificial lambs for us. Well, I kind of laughed it off. I'm like, what a dick, you know. It's like, at least mention the name, give us some press. If we want to be sacrificial freaking lambs, let us be a known sacrificial lamb. You know, let us have some press on it, whatever. Well, Walter didn't feel that way. Walter was the drummer, and he got a little offended by it. He actually got a lot offended by that. He got pissed off enough that he called WMVR and told them who the opening band was. And I think he more or less told them, yeah, the opening band's name is Laughing Cattle, and we're going to kick ass. And that's basically how he come across. He was physically pissed off. And I love him for it. You know, I love him for that because, you know, we're all in it. You know, we're all in the band things together. You shouldn't be telling you're going to sacrifice the opening band. I mean, that was just a ridiculous statement. And Walt called him out on it. And you know, that night, what happened? We played a fantastic show at Phoenix. I mean, I'm not saying those guys were bad, but, you know, we got a hell of a lot of compliments that night. And this is part of the anger-fueled thing that you like sometimes when you're doing shows, which is, hey, it's fantastic. But, you know, after a while with those guys, they played a few good shows with us. We had the Rawhide CD, and, you know, it kind of ran its course. They were more like got it off their bucket list, I guess you would say, and just didn't want to devote the time to it, or couldn't, and that was fine. You know, I still see, if I see them guys out, they're still my buddies. And there was no hard feelings. It wasn't like a bad breakup or anything like that. It was just like you know, it's just not for me. I'm gonna go on my way and back to my normal life, and it was cool. So, you know, me and Jamie, we have much choice. We press on. So I believe that this time we had some, open jams at the house and stuff out there at Jamie's, and Larry Donahue, who ended up playing drums for us for a long time, and his buddy Ryan, they were in a band called Latchkey Conspiracy, and they would come out and just jam with us. And we write a couple. Me and Ryan McKinney, we even wrote a couple songs together. Vegetative State and Lack of Respect that ended up going on the next disc, but their band ultimately kind of tanked a little and broke up or whatever. I don't even know the extent of what happened there. But the offer was made to Larry to say, hey, you want to play drums for us? And he was like, well, yeah, sure. So at about that time, I was on bandmix.com, and I was looking for people to play bass, and we had a couple other feelers out, people to play bass. And we got a hold of Steve. Steve was a guy, he was about an hour away from us, but he was willing to make the trip, and, he was a good bass player. He came over and hooked up pretty quick. He learned all the other songs pretty quick. And about the same time, we had Kevin show up. I don't remember. Jamie might have had that, how he got a hold of Kevin. I'm not positive how. I can't remember. It's been, 20 years ago or what it seems like, 12 years ago. But Kevin showed up too, and he said, well, I can play guitar. And I can play bass or guitar. So for the first time ever, we had 2 guitar players in the band. So we were a 5-piece. And we did some good shows with the 5-piece. Played an AMVETS private party for like a comeback thing, and then we had played at a place called Coyotes. It's no longer there, I think, but it was in West Carrollton, Ohio. We played the Sydney, which was, for me and Jamie especially, was a big deal growing up around Sydney and in Sydney. And, they had redone the theater downtown after it had closed for all those years, and they were having bands in there, and I went to the Extreme. I thought this is going to be great. The big stage, and the balcony, and it wasn't packed by any means every time we played it. We played there a few times, but we played that time with Steve at the Sydney. We had a midget stripper. It was in the building. It was all kinds of crazy stuff, but it was cool. Played, I don't know, I can't remember how many shows with Steve, but when Steve and Kevin were both in the band, we did the Big Rock CD. So I had wrote a few new songs, maybe a handful, 5 or something like that, and then we went back and redid some of the songs that we had interested in doing the new versions of. I think we redid a version of Guru. We did a revamped version of Toowoomba Park. We did Walk On By from the Rawhide Mafia EP. So, and it was a mixture of songs. I think we redid Paradise Lost at that point too. Mixture of songs, and we did it at a little studio in Houston, a little basement studio. And Big Rock, became one of the songs. It was part of the Sydney trio about the rock in Toowoomba Park. And, it was a fun album, really good album. I still like a few of the, Tourist. Tourist was one we wrote for that. And that's one of them. Tourist and Buried Alive, those two are probably the higher end, at least top 5 probably of all Cattle songs for me. So, yeah, we had a good lineup there, and then Steve kind of, if he got tired of the drive, it was a long way for him. He had some medical problems, and it just didn't fit for him anymore. After I think it was probably about a year or so, he ducked out. Kevin switched to bass, which was cool. He switched to bass without any problem whatsoever, and for about a year and a half with Kevin, we on bass, and me and Jamie and Larry, and we played some excellent shows. The best show, in my opinion, that we ever played, probably, maybe second best ever, was a show at the brewery. We were playing in between Altamira and Sometimes 5, which is intimidating as hell because those two guys, the two bands are fantastic, and they're very well known in that area, very popular, get a good crowd, and there was a big crowd there. And yeah, we slammed every song that night, and we had people come up talking to us, and it was just a good time, and it was one of the better shows that I think, in my mind, we ever played. Um, so and we had some difficulty. You know, the old curse shows its ugly head again when Kevin kind of was going through stuff. I was going through stuff. It's too much going on. Kevin, I think, and no, it wasn't Kevin. That was no, that was me first. I had more going on, but Kevin, I know Kevin had some stuff going on. And I had some stuff going on, and the whole, you know, it was just kind of a funky time in the band. Well, I had a little bit of a. I know Jamie and them will never believe this, but I had somewhat of a God complex back then. I mean, I was having my problems with my anger issues. I was having marital problems at the time. I blamed everybody else for everything. It was just, and I decided, you know what? I don't need this stuff. I mean, like I said, I was going through some bad shit, and I just said, you know what? I'm sick of this crap, and I'm going to take a hiatus because, you know, I thought the band should stop because I wanted to take a hiatus. I was an arrogant prick. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I got had some problems. I did. I had some deep problems back then. So I didn't quit, but I said, you know, I'm on a hiatus. You know, you guys can't do without me anyway. I'm a high asshole. Yeah, I was. And next thing I know, they're auditioning singers at the house. And I'm living down the street, so I know. I knew they were practicing. I would go by and kind of get a glimpse of what I was hearing to see, you know, if the singer guy was doing it. Because, you know, I could very well be getting freaking boot, and I would have deserved the boot. I would have. But it didn't work out that way as far as singer guy. Just, I don't know if he wasn't up to they didn't seem to gel with him, or he just didn't like the music or whatnot. But, you know, went to a party at Jamie's. He pulled me off the side. He goes, listen, dude, I'd really like you just to come back, and we'll go back to it. In my mind, I'm thinking at that point, I'm starting to get a little more straightened out in my head, and I'm realizing that I was lucky to survive this one. I mean, the honest truth, I should have been fired. I should have been told, you know, you're not that important, big man. You know, don't get in your attitude and start demanding shit and say you're going to go on hiatus. But I did it, you know, and it's like I'm not gonna say that. You know, I really can't apologize any more than now. But it's like I was a complete asshole until 2010. I don't know how Jamie put up with me. There's times, you know, it's like, dude, I was a dick. And, you know, I'm not ashamed of having to go to a psychologist because, you know, it's like I had anger problems. I was a mood swinging, anger having son of a gun, man. And once my marriage, you know, we've decided we're going to get divorced or whatnot. I wouldn't blame her by any means, but I mean, I was going to the psychologist. I was having these marital things. We decided to split. My therapist was helping me out. So once I got back into the band on that point, I was more grateful for what I had because nobody's going to deal with my schedule. I had a weird work schedule. Always have. They worked around my schedule. They let me write whatever the hell I wanted. I'm not a great singer. They let me sing and put up with it. You know, it's like you could have went out and found a better singer. You could have went out and found a guy that wasn't an asshole. But they hung with me, which is, you know, cool as hell to me. I'm grateful for it now. And I learned a lot from that experience there. And Kevin went off. He was having some issues too, like I said, but I think he just had to bail out for the same reason I did. Kind of just, you needed to get out of there and get your shit straight. And that's what I did. And that's what he did. Because, I mean, many years later, he's still into music and he's still a great guy. You know, love Kevin, you know. It was one of those ones, you know, sorry to see go, like most of them. But then the curse again, of course, rears its ugly head. So we have no bass player. Luckily for us, Mr. Zach Kruzmark had went to a few of our shows. I think he was interested in seeing how a band works. And I mean, even though we weren't his type of music, he was a young kid again, 16. So we like the teenagers for bass players, I guess. But Zach come in, filled in great, did a handful of shows with us. The biggest one that year was JJ's. JJ's Halloween Hog Roast. The first of many, thank goodness, because that first show out there was, I had a side project also at the time. I had a side band project I was doing. So we were both playing. So it was kind of cool that, I got to play twice in one night, which was nice. But the biggest thing about that was, Zach playing his first full-blown show in front of his family and his friends, or his family was there, I know. And we all, it was a good time. Zach was a hell of a bass player. We called him the Prodigy. He was always where he was supposed to be. He could play flashy, but he didn't if it didn't require it. Even though this was not his type of music, he was definitely more of a headbanger. He did a great job. I mean, he went and played a bunch of shows with us there. That Hog Roast was a kick-ass show. He played a bunch, and we went in and when we went in to do the next CD, Zach laid all the bass tracks down, before he decided to hang it up and get ready to go to college and that stuff. But he was around for a year and a half. We played some good stuff with him. Then we had a couple songs written for the next CD, and I'd always toyed with the idea of writing a concept album. And like I said, these guys never questioned me on what I wrote. And I'm like, I brought it up to James. I said, the greatest album ever released, in my opinion, it's still in my opinion, was Queensryche's Operation Mindcrime. But I said, I don't know that I can take 10 songs like Queensryche did and make them a big story, a one singular story. So I said, what I'm going to do, something a little different. I had a couple songs written. I know Crucified was already written. I believe Pain Becomes My Friend was already written. And I said, those songs, if you take the meaning of those songs, what I originally wrote them about, but if I have a good concept, I can, those words, it's beauty of music, it's beauty of lyrics. To different people, they mean different things. Well, even the guy that wrote it can change the meaning of it. And that's kind of what happened with that. Was I said those two songs can be compatible with what I have in my mind for a concept album. So I got the idea for the concept album. I said, all right, here we go. I'm going to write around those two songs, make sure they fit in there. But from song 1 to song 10, it's going to be what I call a progressive concept album. So it starts with the original problem or diagnosis, whatever you want to call it, the main issue that you have. So when I wrote the confrontation, it's about, okay, it's time to stand up against this crap. And from that all the way to the end song, Climb the Mountain was about achieving victory. At least in my mind, it was like, I can beat whatever these idiots want to hate me. They want to throw shit around about me and slander me, whatever, try to make me feel like a less of a person for it. Fuck them. And that was exactly what Climb the Mountain means, is I am going to get my redemption. You're going to tell me I can't do something, I'm going to do it. And then it's going to happen that way. And it's going to be, I overcame you. I redeemed myself. I have redemption. And that was the pinnacle song to end with. It was just beautiful how it came together. It was I think it might have been the last song we wrote, and it just came like instantaneous. We didn't struggle to write that. We didn't have any troubles. A one take thing, and we modified it, but it was there from like pretty much on the get go. And with that, I didn't want to tell anybody it was a concept. I mean, not really that it wasn't a concept album. But when it first came out, after we had recorded it, I had asked people, take this home and listen to it. It all has one central meaning. You go home and tell me what you think it means. And I just wanted to hear people's honest, if they even got what I was writing about, and to make sure that they, hopefully listen to the lyrics, because it was a big deal for me, the people to know or listen to my lyrics or kind of have an idea what the lyrics even are about. That's my part as a songwriter. I'm more of a songwriter than I am a singer. I could write songs and let somebody else sing it, but I want the lyric feedback. You know what I'm saying? And so we recorded, when we recorded that disc, we had me and Jamie and Larry and Zach did the bass right before he went to college or graduation, whatever. He was just kind of done, and we loved that he filled in and did that, and he was definitely a key part in this band. But we got the CD done. It was the best lyrical 10 songs I have ever done in my life. Still to this day, I mean, I don't think I could write some of those songs better than I did. I don't think some of those songs could be done by anybody else that's better. I mean, I just think that album was sensational. It was, for me and for, I think, everybody. It was a good album, great album. I mean, it and Postal Carrier are like 50-50 for me. I can listen to them both beginning to end and not have a problem with it. I think Postal Carrier for me was a little more fun. I mean, it had some lighthearted songs, and Redemption was some serious song. I mean, Redemption was all serious. There wasn't a screw-off song on there, and I think that might be the first time that we've ever done that, was we're going to do serious. We're going to lyrically serious music. We're going to make it as tight as we can be. They're going to be, good 4-minute songs. They're going to, we're going to stick to basically our bread and butter, our wheelhouse. We're not going to do 5 different genres on this. We're going to play what we play the best. And I think it worked out. And I really, thankful that I got to do that. It's very, very humbling to know that, a lot of people write what they're told to write. I don't get told to write shit. I write exactly whatever I want to write. And I never got any pushback on that stuff. I mean, there was one on the Postal Carrier album, was probably a mistake. I didn't go into that, and I'm not going into that, but anyway, moving along. So we did that, and then I got some people that they'd listen to that CD and they would say, "Hey, I like the album, but I'm not sure I'm cool with this satanic undertone." Satanic undertone. And they went through and explained to me on the song, well, this song means this song could mean this song means this. And when I listened to their point of view, I was like, holy shit. It could have been satanic undertone, but it wasn't. And it's like, I always challenge people to go listen to it. I try to get them to listen to it, but for the sake of time here and for everything else, I mean, I don't want to hit on it too much. I'm not going to preach at anybody, but it was about, in the world we have racism, you have feminism, you have homophobia, you have, people slam you for your religion, they slam you for your politics, they slam you for this and that, and everybody seems to have a defense system for that. And the one thing that never really gets defended is fat shaming. I mean, I'm a fat guy. I've been fat most of my adult life, my childhood, blah, blah, blah. And when somebody would pick on me about my weight, I'd just bash them in the fucking head if I didn't agree with what they were saying. But I don't think it's ever been addressed to this day. It's like, yeah, I know. I mean, I can lose the weight. That's what they all say. Well, you can lose weight. You can lose weight. Well, some of us have struggles with that, So that whole CD was about fat shaming. Now, you tell me another band that that would let their singer write an entire concept album about fat shaming. Not too many. I don't see Megadeth or Foo Fighters or somebody coming out with an album about fat shaming. So again, very, very humbled to be able to do that. Very proud of that CD as far as lyrics go. I'll back it up till the day I die. It's 10 of the greatest songs. I mean, every song has a good meaning. Every song was, there was a couple, songs that we didn't particularly love. but it went with the story. It went in. That it was a good. It's great. Great. I'm gonna use the word great. It's a great disc. So listen to it. It's still on the internet. So get on it. Check it out. Redemption. So with the Redemption, Zach leaving, we had gotten a buddy of ours, and he had a buddy that wanted to come in and play bass, and so we got George to play bass for us. Was that right? No, no, no. Scott played bass. Scott was in my band. I'm getting my timetable screwed up. Scott was in my band, Undying Obsession, my side project at the time. And, I told him we need a bass player. I said, would you be interested in playing bass for us? And he's like, sure, I'll do both. And came in, learned the songs, studied them, and learned them. Yeah, and he fit right in there. And he did an absolute fantastic job of learning those songs that quick. I mean, it wasn't that long, and we were show ready, And for the Redemption CD, that year of shows was pretty good. I mean, it was a lot of good shows. And it was fabulous. Really, we did an anti-country concert out at JJ's, but it was in July, not the hog roast, but we did that. That was what I remember of it was really good. Jeff and Linda, they have a tendency to make me forget my name sometimes. We party so hard out there because they're such great people, and they opened their house for us 5 years in a row for the hog roast, I believe, and we had 2 or 3 country concerts. I mean, it just good times out there. So it's a lot less pressure than a bar show. It's a lot more fun, and we had a good kick-ass year of songs with that. Of course, the curse has to hit some point, so yeah, it hit, and Scott decided it wasn't for him when UO broke up too, and he just wasn't feeling like he was in the band. He felt like a paid player. It's kind of what I found out later, like a hired gun, and he left too. So we had down to no bass player again. And this is maybe 2011, the end of 2011, 2012, somewhere in that time frame. So we had Buddy, and speaking of Jeff Judy and Linda, they had a buddy they worked with. His name was George. He played bass, and for once he was an older guy, so he was older than he was the senior citizen of us all. So we said, hell, we've tried all the young kids, and tried the same age as us guys. So yeah, let's go for a little bit older in the tooth. See what this guy can do. And George come in. And, played bass for us for, I don't know, a couple years. I think it ended up being a couple years. But we had some tragedy, in Scott, with Scott. And Scott had come back to play guitar for us. And, it was that was a rough time for some of the, band-wise and personal wise for him. And I'm not going to go into these tragedies. I mean, if they want to talk about them, they can talk about them. But Scott decided to come back to the band. He was going to play second guitar, and we went back to a 5-piece. So we did that for a little while. It didn't, about maybe a year or so. I mean, it was probably a year or two. I don't know. It's in that game area. But then it came to the point where it wasn't that I didn't want to play anymore, and I didn't have the problems I was having in 09, 010. It was work was killing me, and that was what it all boiled down to. It was like I had gotten married in 2011, so I was relatively a newlywed still. I worked second shift. And usually our practices were on the weekends, our shows were on the weekend. Well, I worked second shift, and we were working weekends. So we were working Saturdays and sometimes Sundays, a lot of times Sundays. And, I didn't see my wife during the week. So when I did get a day off during the weekend, it's like as much as she was supportive of me always doing the music thing, I wanted to spend some time with her. And we had the youngest daughter was still at home. So I wanted to do all that. So I said, guys, I went to them up front and said, it's tough for me, but I'm going to have to bow out of here. And so the process began at that point that we were going to switch singers. And, Jamie's wife, Abby, at the time was taking over, which it's different to hear a girl sing my stuff, but it was cool. She asked a lot of questions about the lyrics. I gave her the full lyrics. I wanted her to know all the words, and she asked me some of them were about, and so I was happy. The transition to semi-retirement, or what I was calling it, and these guys knowing they would be in good hands with that, I was overjoyed. So the Hall Gross came, the fifth, I think it's fifth one, whatever it was. I had to work that night, of course, because I was working every freaking weekend. So Saturday, I took a half a day off on a Saturday and said, I'm going to go out and watch these. They would have been their first show without me singing, and I wanted to be there. So I took the half the day off, and I said, I'll come up and sing a few. I'll do a set or whatever and sing it with you. And that was a fantastic night. One of the better nights of my life, to tell you the truth, as far as music goes. It was just a fun-filled night, getting to sing in front of people for what I thought could very well be the last time. And things didn't work out that way. And we had another tragedy, which, like I said, I'm not going to get into the tragedies. I'll let people that want to talk about that talk about it. If they don't, they don't. I just know it was a tough one for me too. I mean, it was very, very tough. Because band's family. Band's a family. You might not always hell, there's times where I don't like my brothers and sisters. Well, now I'm okay with it, but back when I was younger, you had the squabbles and the fights and all that. Believe me, we had squabbles and fights. Even me and Jamie, we were the two that lasted in there 24 years together. Christ, he ain't no time. He might not have spoke as much, but there had to have been times when I left that house or left a practice or a show, and he had to think, what a son of a bitch. How do I put up with this freaking guy? And there was times I went home and said, I'd like to, just fuck this guy. He pissed me off today. It's a family. So when you have a tragedy in a family, it affects everybody. It doesn't just, it affects some more than others, of course, we know that. But, even the people that are around you, the wives, the girlfriends, the buddies, something happens with them. If any kind of tragedy happens, it affects, you feel the effects everywhere. And we felt this one, and it was a tough one to take. And even though I was semi-retired, I still, I felt the aftershocks of that one, and it was not a good time in the history of the band. And so I can't remember how many months it was after that. Probably the spring of 14, or I don't want to get dates wrong, but probably about the spring of 14, I'm thinking 2014 or 2015. I'm sorry, but I cannot remember dates. I decided to come back. It was something that my work was letting up a little bit. My wife had kind of told me, I know you miss it, and I did. I did miss it very much, even that short period of time. It was like, didn't think I would because I had so much stuff occupying my time, but I missed it. So when I got the option to come back, the opportunity to come back, I did that. So, so we came back together, and it was different, of course. It's always a big game changer. It's like it makes a difference. But, it was a delayed start back. So at that point, Larry had found another drumming gig. And really, we were, for reasons, it was like we just couldn't just get up and start playing again. So the pause, Larry decided he had another offer to play drums, and we're not going to stop Larry from playing drums. It's like we we really wanted him to come back at the time, but it's like, hey, you're doing your thing and you're getting to play, and that's what we know you love to play. So we're not gonna sit here and whine and cry about it. We'll see what happens. We'll go out and maybe search for something, and whatever. So we started looking for drummers and bass players because the whole thing kind of fell apart. George had left. He had another gig, and then Scott left, and you know it was just the way it goes sometimes. The old curse, I call it. So we kind of toiled around a little bit, and I actually got George had called me and said, "Hey, I'm in this cover band. Do you want to come and sing for us?" And I was like, "Well, I can't sing covers." And not seriously. I mean, the covers we did, I could rip out some Purple Rain for you. If you want to hear Purple Rain, I can do that because it's supposed to be funny. It's not supposed to be meant as a serious attempt at playing Purple Rain. But these guys wanted to do a serious cover band, and at the time, Cattle really we get together once in a blue moon or whatever. So I was doing that, and then we were still auditioning people. For the stuff, having jams at the house out at the cattle ranch, and that's how John got involved. I mean, John Bargy was a friend of ours. We've known him a long time. I knew his brother way back when, high school. I met his brother Jamie. So John would come out and jam. He was in some cover bands before, and he had kind of gotten out of that. But he'd come in and was just jamming around. And a lot of times I would play drums just to have some drumming going on, and Jamie might sing, or sing as he's playing or whatnot. It was, good times. But we had him, and then we got a couple guys that come up and try out for drums, and we actually had one that we had it announced even on the page. I think he was going to play drums, and that John was a new bass player, and everything was kosher. And then that drummer said, well, wait a minute. The next time he shows up at practice, he has another gig with a band closer to his house that play more his style, which the curse rears its ugly head. So I'm practicing with this cover band down in Dayton, and I get a call one day on my way home, and there's a picture of the cattle ranch with this drum set, and I'm like, who the hell's drum set's that? Well, here it ended up being Chris. Long lost prodigal son, Chris. Had moved back from Texas. And I believe this was 2016 or 17. I can't, like I said, the dates are screwed up. But he's like, yeah, I was out here jamming today. We're going to have to get together and jam, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, all right. And we did that. And, he knew all the songs. We'd always send him, I think Jamie had always sent him the new CDs. So he kept up with all the songs. So he knew all the songs. John had learned a bunch of songs when he was trying people out and just to be ready. So, here we go. He got me, Jamie, Chris, and John. So back in business. So we're playing, started playing some shows. Wrote a few new songs. I wrote one. I think John wrote two at that point. We had a good set of music. We were playing the local scenes. We played like a moon ranch, the big moon ranch outside in the rain. That was a festival and like Labor Day. Played Club Panama down in Springfield. Which I'd always kind of wanted to play. Just had a reputation of being this dive bar. I thought it was a good place, man. Good crowd, and we had good bands playing with us. We always seem to luck out with having really good bands playing with us, and for them letting us play with them. I mean, we had some hellacious gigs. A lot of people look at like the McGuffey's gig we had way back in then, opening for Unwritten Law, but it's like those guys were so arrogant and shitty. But the other local bands were fantastic. I mean, we got along with all the other local bands. And that's how I appeal to it. It's like it's how good you get along. All the shows we played over the years with the Gringo, and sometimes Five and Race 101, and these absolute killer local bands. It's Gray Cloud 9 and bands like that are around. We played with them at Club Panama, and it's like we got to meet them, and we've all become friends with them guys, and even the band I'm in now has played a show with them. So it's fantastic, the music community. But anyway, I'm getting off track, and we did have a couple big shows. We played the last one we played for that year for 2017 was Halloween Bash at Z's in Piqua. That was a killer show. We all dressed up, had a good time. It was our new songs were in there. Everything seemed to be going pretty good, and so it was cool. We had a little bit of time off for the first of the year, and had some time off, and I don't know when it just didn't seem at this point. I mean, this is probably the swan song here is it didn't seem at this point that I don't want to say I didn't feel it, but I was listening to a certain type of music and heavier stuff, and I seen the band going in a little lighter side maybe. I don't really know what it was. To tell you the truth, it was more of a just didn't feel like. I mean, Jamie wanted me to be completely honest. Didn't feel like family anymore. It felt more like a job. I mean, the practices would be real early in the day, and like we used to have these epic 6-7 hour practices, cookouts afterwards. And it's like, yeah, I know I'm 50. I'm 51 years old now. I was 40 something, 49 or whatever when I left. I know I need to grow up some point, and and it's like an excuse for me to be drinking beer on a Saturday. Sure, it is, but I miss that, and it's like I didn't feel that was the direction. And then they were, they would go in at like at 10 o'clock on a Saturday morning or something, or Sunday morning, and it lost interest for me. Put it that way. It was like part of being in the band, and it's not the way it should be, but I like to have a few beers, and I like to socialize, and it's like I still think I can get the job done at practice even doing that. So for me, it was just a matter of it didn't feel right to me anymore. I don't want to say it wasn't like I hate the music. I still like the music. I still love the music. Wasn't that I was being picked out or singled out or anything. But in my mind, I actually feel that they kind of weren't upset about it, and that's okay. They kind of were leaning towards a different direction too. Like, yeah, I'm constantly wanting to do these drop tunings and drop this and slower and heavier and crunchy. I want the crunch, and they're more about the melody of the song and different timings, things, and stuff like that. Fantastic. I mean, it's fantastic. It really is. That they and I was 3-1. It was like I'm not going to be the one that tries to hold up the whole thing. I did that once before with my shitty God complex, and I'm not doing that again. So I was never asked to leave, and I don't want anybody to think that I quit abruptly. I mean, I just didn't want to be there being fake. I've always been a very honest person and very down the straightforward, and I did not want to just go through the motions. If I didn't feel it, it wasn't my type of music anymore, or the newer stuff, or the atmosphere was wrong, or the atmosphere didn't meet up to what I wanted to spend my time doing, I was going to be gone. So and it's no big deal. I mean, it was a big deal, but it was no dramatic exit stage right. It was, I kind of told a few people, and the guys in the band, I said, listen, this is going to be my last show. I don't want there to be any hard feelings or drama, and there wasn't. So I'm grateful, very happy about that. So on March 31st, 2018 was my last show, day, whatever you want to call it. A couple years ago, actually, almost to the day now. Then I left the band, and they still, they're still motoring. They're still rocking and rolling. They actually, and I have a band of my own. I had a redone version of the band I had back in 2010, and we're still playing. So everybody's still playing. We actually, the funniest thing, before I close here, I know I'm rambling, but the funniest thing here about the two bands, the one I'm in, the one Jamie and John and Larry are doing now. Over all the years, me and Jamie had we had a wish list. We had a bucket list. That bucket list, one of them included playing a big, significant show out of the state of Ohio. Didn't matter where, out of the state. So for all these years, I tried to book us in all these places, in Kentucky or Michigan, and nobody, they hadn't heard of you. They're not, we can't even play in freaking Columbus. They go, well, do you have a crowd following? Do you have a crowd? Not to go to Columbus? No, I'm sorry. We didn't. But we, there was a benefit concert. And a girl from the internet radio, Roxy from internet radio, Rockstar Glued, had a benefit plan for one of the founders of that internet radio. And it was in Newport, Kentucky. So I know Cattle had applied to play there. And I knew Roxy too. I'd seen her a couple times at Crowbar shows and Ginger shows and stuff. And I hooked up to her too. I said, hey, if you need another band, if you would happen to need another band, I mean, the Undying Obsession could come down too. We would come down, and we're from Sydney also, or Piqua. And she said, yeah, sure, come on down. So we were going to get to play at the out-of-state show on the same exact show, the same exact day, in two different bands. So that's how it worked out. We got our goal, but we got in two different bands. But the funniest thing of that whole day for me was the fact that we come 95 miles or whatever it was to Newport, Kentucky. And we're two randomly, they had a random list of bands playing. They didn't put anybody in any particular orders that I'm aware of. And we get down there, what happens? We play back to back. Just like back when I was in the side project UO. And we had played a few shows together, UO and Cattle back then. This one was in a different state and two different bands, and it was a good show. And I had a good time down there. They, Cattle killed it. UO killed it. Everybody was happy, and what can you ask for more than that? That we're all still playing music, that we're all still getting to express ourselves through music, and and I was asked by somebody at work when they found out that I had been in a band for that long. They said, "Do you regret it, being in a band that long? It really didn't take you to anywhere. You're not a cover band. You're not making money." Hell no, I've never made any money, and that's okay. I'm not in it for money. If I was in it for money, I wouldn't be in it, because I can't make any money. And the original bands know what I'm talking about. But there's no way I'd regret even the shittiest years, the bad times. We had some bad times, struggling times, just fighting within the band, the tragedies I talk, the downright shitty shows, couple really shitty shows that make you wonder why you're doing it at all. But they are in no comparison to the good times, the decent times where you had some fun here and there. But I got to tell you, out of the majority of the years, I had a great time. I mean, it wasn't even a good time. It was a great time. I got to do what I love to do, man. I got to sing my songs on a stage with my friends. How in the world can you have a better existence than that if you're a musician or you're in the music world? How the hell do you expect to get any better than that? Yeah, we could be millionaires. We could be rock stars. Have you seen some of these movies with rock stars? I mean, it just gets worse. Yeah, I would love to have been a rock star. I'm not going to sit here and bullshit you and say, I wish I wasn't Metallica and could do this for a living every single day. Psh, are you kidding? I would do that in a minute. At 51 years old, I'd still do it. But it didn't work out that way. But self-satisfaction. Self-satisfaction is all you need, man. I got it. I was blessed for 24 years to be in Laughing Cattle. I don't know if you'll be able to see it or not, but it's right there. I mean, that was the first tattoo I ever got. And it's never going to get covered up. It's never going to get messed with. Proud to be an LC, man. I was proud to be an LC. I'm proud to be an LC alumni. Moving forward, I wish them guys nothing but the best forever. I mean, long live LC, baby. That's the way I look at it. I'll do my thing. They'll do their thing. And all that music will remain forever. We'll have it forever. I'll remember it forever. I got the memories. I got the videos of the shows to look at. I do. It's just, I want to thank everybody. I don't want to skip anybody's name, but I'm going to try here. You got Jason Cavender, Chris Rogers. Go on to the next one. Will be Walter Studebaker, Matt Morrison, Steve Konevsky, Crazy Waya, Kevin Reedy, Larry Donahue, of course. I can't even, it's like my mind's going wild. Chris Rogers, I already said. John Bargy, Scott Hoffman, George Kennison. I mean, I thank you all. I thank you all for allowing me to do what I've done and what I did for 24 years. No better feeling, it's great. I know I've rambled long enough. I just want to say that I appreciate Jamie wanting me to speak some on the Laughing Cattle stuff. And, brother, we've had our ups and downs. We've had some great times, like I said. You'll always be my brother because you've believed in a guy for 24 years. I can't say thank you enough for that. And I hope LC lives forever, as long as you can do it. And anything I can do in any way, shape, or form to help you out at some point, shows or whatnot, I'm always around, man. We'll do her up. For now, I'm going to quit rambling and get ready to watch the governor's speech here in a little bit. But what else can I say? Hey, I love y'all. Thank you. Keep rocking. And as always, keep laughing. LC, baby.